Well, it's cold outside, and that's winter weather camping. So we'll talk about that and how to protect yourself against freezing pipes. So this all started out because I've been having problems with my pile light staying lit in my water compartment, and my pile light, when it goes out, is really the source of heat in the wintertime when we're in sub-freezing temperatures that keeps that water compartment warm and keeps my water pipes from freezing. And so what I wanted to do was put a heater in there, and I wanted to figure out how to do that within our 30 amp restriction. So I added up what I have on one side and added up what I have on the other side. The bus is basically divided into left side, right side, 15 amps on each side. And what I did was take everything on the right side, for example, was the TV is 1 to 1.5 amps. A light that we have is probably not even a half an amp. The stove has a receptacle, which you can see right there next to the stove, that you don't really have to count unless you're using something in it. It does count as the number of receptacles that you're allowed to have, which is generally 8 or 9 on a 15 amp circuit with a couple of lights. So, you know, there are different ways to count, but typically you don't want to put more than 9 receptacles on one 15 amp breaker on a 14.2 AWG wire. Then we have the back window deck where I have 2, and I'll show you these. I'll walk through them. And on the right side, what I wanted to add was this luggage bay with a heater in there that draws 1.25 amps. I'll show you that in a minute too. And I wanted to add a receptacle by my closet, which makes it easier to plug in one of these little space heaters. Now, we have a 34,000 BTU propane-fired furnace under the stove here. And it does a terrific job in heating the bus. It runs on 12 volts, so we convert it or run it on battery power. And it uses propane. But in single-digit weather, it uses a whole tank of propane in a day to stay at around 65 degrees in here. So we don't like to use it because it's costly. And what I've taken to doing is using these space heaters, which I'll show you. So we want to add all this stuff up and come up with what we have. So if you add up the TV, the heater, the refrigerator, which uses 1 amp, it's compressor operator, it's a Norcold 828 series refrigerator. It only operates on 12 volts or 110. It doesn't operate on propane. And this bay heater that is 1.25 amps or 150 watt bulb in there, we wind up with 16.25 amps draw on the right side if you're running the heater at full tilt. Now if you run a little bit less than that, that number goes down. You're really only supposed to run at 80% at continuous use of 15 amps, and so we're a little bit over this. I tested this with this new setup, and with the heater running at full tilt, the TV running, the bay heater working, and the refrigerator running, all of that, the breaker, the 15 amp breaker, didn't flip. Okay, so I feel really good about that. On the left side, what we had existing was a little light that's up there that's not even a half an amp, a front cabinet receptacle that I use for, you know, running a heater or whatever, a receptacle over the sink, a receptacle above the sink, a bathroom receptacle, 2 receptacles by the television bedroom or by the bed, and one for the TV, and then the converter, which uses about 5 amps. So when you add up the left side, you wind up with the TV at 1.5 amps, the converter at 5 amps, and the heater at 12.5, takes you to 19. Now, I've been running this for a long time, even with that heater full tilt, and the TV working, and the converter on, and all that stuff, and even having a light or two on here and there, and phones charging and whatnot. I've never tripped a breaker on a 15 amp breaker on a 14.2 AWG wire, and I've never tripped a breaker in the campground when I've had all this running on a 30 amp circuit. So that's kind of how we have our 30 amp circuit laid out. And it allowed me to put this heater in the luggage bay. So wintertime is tough. Wintertime's tough in motorhomes, and so let me show you where these receptacles are. There's one here, and then there's one up here for this television that I use, and right now it's got the TV and a flashlight charging in there. And down here is one where the refrigerator is plugged in, and I used to plug a heater into that, but it kind of got in the way. And then back here, I put a new one in on this wall for this heater, which I love these heaters. Now I know they get in the way a little bit, but these are these oil-filled little radiator heaters, and they, one in the front and one in the back, in single-digit weather on the medium setting, will warm the bus to 70 degrees, and it is just as comfortable a heat and reliable a heat as you can expect or ask for. And then in the back by our bed, we have outlets here, mostly for charging phones and Fitbits and whatever else we have. And so that plus this light on top makes up what the right side is. Now the left side, there's a converter underneath the bed, which I won't bother to crawl under there and show you. A television on this side with a single receptacle over here. Okay. In the bathroom, we have a receptacle on the wall right there, which, you know, my wife uses for blowing her hair dryer or whatever. But whenever you use anything that creates heat, a blow dryer, a toaster, a coffee maker, any of those things, whenever you use any of those things, you have to unplug the other heat source, which would be one of those radiators. So we have these things. We have a receptacle up here for the toaster and for the coffee maker. We have a receptacle down here. You can see I have my phone plugged into it. And basically, that's the extent of the receptacles that we have on this side, other than this lamp that works on 110 and also on 12 volts. And so that kind of sums up what we did on the inside. Now, the only thing that I have to show you is where that new heater is in the luggage bay that we keep the water tanks from freezing with. All right, so excuse the mess because this is where I've been working, but this is the water compartment at the back right side of the bus. And you can see I have a 50-gallon tank here, a 10-gallon water heater right there with a propane pilot light that normally keeps things fairly warm in there, but again, the pilot light has been a problem blowing out later. Another 50 gallons of water here. And back here is my waste tank that I made out of plywood and fiberglass. That's 100 gallons right there. So you can see that I have everything plumbed in here, and this is where all of my plumbing is. And what I was concerned about was, you know, obviously things freezing in here. So this is the little heat lamp that I bought on Amazon. I think it was 12 bucks. It comes with a little thermometer, digital thermometer, and I just wired that in, put that lamp holder in there, and you can turn it off with the pull chain. It also has a place for you to plug in if you want to put in a little space heater and heat with that instead of the lamp. This thing burns at about 700 degrees. That surface on that thing is about 700. And if you look up, you know, there's these wood surfaces that are all around and plastic and whatnot. And I've been monitoring that. I monitored that overnight with that running full tilt. And it kept it about 55 or 60 degrees in here. It's 30 degrees in the garage, so that's really not too bad. But hopefully in 0-degree temperatures, it'll keep it above freezing. And none of these surfaces get particularly hot. I think they were like 70 degrees or something like that at the hottest point. And so that's how I am heating my luggage bay where my water compartment is. And hope this helps. I know wintertime is challenging in the RVs. We don't normally keep any lines hooked up outside, so I don't worry about that. If I hook it up, it's to fill it up and empty out. I don't leave them out there like some people do, you know, 24/7. And so this is seeming to work out pretty well for us. So the only thing in addition to my 30 amp service going in there from the campground or from the wall in here, and actually I'm limited to 20 amps in here, but it's set up for 30 amps in the campgrounds, is that I have a block heater that has a plug under here that I grab hold of and plug into with an extension cord. And then up here by my dump valve, and this was a design problem, this is my fault. When I built this, I should have had more insight. But I also have a plug there that I can plug a heater. It's one of those, you know, line heaters that you wrap around a water line. and it's just a 3-foot line. And so what I'm going to do is set those up so they're connected together. And with one extra extension cord at the campground, I can warm my motor and I can keep that dump valve from freezing in the cold. And then that's it. So you have 30 amps. You run 2 of those little space heaters inside. You can run on the extra 15 amps at your box, or 20 amp service at the box. You can run your block heater and the heater to keep the dump valve warm. And that basically takes care of your wintertime woes, aside from trying to stay warm when you're not inside your coach.